Welcome, Jed Berger of Foot Locker. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
For those of you who aren't familiar with Foot Locker, we're going to run some video and a side window that'll give you a sense of the different locations and the different story experiences, some of which we're going to be talking about over the next 25 minutes. First of all, one of the things that really interested me in our preparatory talks, Jed, was especially the focus on product development and the ways in which it's being married to marketing. And that's, I think, one of the things that I really wanted to drill into here. First of all, let's talk about that range of products. When we talk about product development at Foot Locker, that's really core to the whole enterprise and the whole model here. How many products are you guys releasing?
Well, it's an interesting question because, the sneaker industry in general, it does take time to create a sneaker. It's really probably about an average of a 12 to 15 month time period to actually go from design to implementation. So, we are releasing new product every single day, to be honest with you. But making sure that those are being perceived as the most relevant and connected products as possible is actually pretty tricky when you are developing product 12 to 15 months out.
We're talking about a scale of like hundreds of products within a given year.
Oh yeah, I'm 100%. I mean, when I, it's funny, we did an Instagram poll at some point and or a poll of our Instagram followers, and they literally expect to see 7 to 10 new product releases a day. Which is, it's not the case, to be honest. We don't have 7 to 10 new product releases a day, but it does give you an idea of the expectations that consumers have for us.
But some of the tie-ins, let's just a few samples of some tie-ins, and when we're talking about different kinds of sneakers, because that's what I want to really dig into, this idea of product development. What are some of the sneaker models we're talking about and the kinds of tie-ins that you've done over the last year?
Yeah, so I can talk about it in a couple different ways. I mean, so first of all, we do represent choice, right? Foot Locker does represent choice, and we represent, I would say, marquee choice, meaning what we sell is meant to represent social currency, and that what you buy should help you express yourself, and what you wear. I mean, obviously, what you wear should help you express yourself. We like to say that you should stand out and potentially without sticking out. But really that you should know that if you pick up anything off the wall, anything off our website, that you're good to go. And so choice is really important. And within footwear, it's not like apparel where there's hundreds of different brands. Right? Footwear tend to be the same brands for a really long time now. And that doesn't mean that there aren't a few other companies that have broken through in the past few years. There have, but for the most part, the sneaker brands, the Nike, Adidas, Jordan, Converse, Reebok, Puma, Asics, did I say New Balance? But Timberland. There are, everybody sort of knows the brand partners, and then there's been some obviously new ones throughout the last couple of years. If you're talking about an On Running or a Hoka, or the resurgence of Crocs. So there's only a finite amount of sneaker brands to work with to develop new ideas, new products, and bring to market. So that in itself is actually a little bit challenging. But we have a great partnership with everybody, and we have a product development engine that sits under me. It's a concept team that that works with our brand partners to build the idea into the design, the 12 to 15 months out front. So that could be an idea that's rooted in cause, or that could be from pop culture or entertainment, or a collaboration with a designer.
Well, give us some examples, because there's some wild examples out there that I don't think people anticipate. Like cereal brands and things like that. Give us
totally. I mean, we're actually launching a. There has been actually multiple cereal drops previously, and a lot of the time those are through athletes who love cereal, and then so they want to partner with them. But we actually have a Crocs partnership collaboration coming, and where it's a cereal partnership with 5 different cereals. We just dropped a product with Bratz For kids, we've done Haribo gummy bears. So we've done everything from the silly to Autism Speaks, which is obviously more serious and more cause related. So, I mean, anything, the great thing about youth culture is that it's gotten wider, not more narrow. So entertainment, food, gaming, sport, like I said, cause or purpose. I mean, there's really no ends to where you can collaborate in the sneaker industry.
So you're doing at a much more advanced level, something that I think a lot of other retailers are working on and a lot of other brands are working on. That is the idea of bringing product development and marketing closer together, so that marketing is part of the process, and it's a more product-led rather than brand-led marketing affair. Tell us overall the strategic aim of a product first marketing approach, how that's different from the broader brand first marketing that maybe we've been familiar with and retailers have been familiar with for decades.
Well, so first of all, I will relate it back to the sneaker industry for a second, and then talk a little bit more broadly. So within the sneaker industry, what was most often to have happened is that a sneaker would get designed with an idea in mind, but the design would be inspired, right? And then that product would be handed off to a bunch of marketers 5 weeks before the release or 6 weeks before the release and say, go build us a story about this shoe. But by the way, the actual original idea is not really obvious in the product design. It's not rooted in IP or a partnership that we can legally utilize. So it made the marketing a little bit more smoke and mirrors and brand focused. And what we wanted to do is sort of flip the script there and build the idea or that collaboration or that license into the design of the sneaker, which also and make sure that relevant contextual connected piece that we're bringing the design has relevancy to the consumer, because when it does, it is a much easier for us to tell that story, and to be honest with you, much less expensive, because we don't have to make up this entire world. So I think that has been a huge lesson for us over the last 2 years. We originally called it concepts over colorways. Colorways and sneakers was just your continued drops of different colors of really popular models. And what we wanted was connected concepts. And we thought if we had those connected concepts, those stories would be easier to tell. And then all those additional colorways would be benefactors of the energy that we were bringing that model. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I want to dig into what the implications are of that for marketing, and especially for the ways in which you organize. Now, you've used the term in our previous discussions of the CMO plus idea, how marketing and how the CMO's role is actually changing substantially because of this. What do you mean by that?
Well, first of all, I think the CMO role has changed for a lot of different reasons. And one of the things that I always talk to our marketing teams about is I really want them to be business partners and revenue drivers first. And that doesn't take away from the idea generation or creative that I would expect to have out of them. But I want them to be able to take a whole lot of unstructured thought from the business and create it into a structured business plan that has a beginning and an end. And so I think first and foremost that is a significant change from what I think has been perceived by business in general as brand marketing. And so it's funny, I literally tell young people breaking into the industry, take brand marketing off your resume. People want to know that you can drive revenue. People want to know that you can create demand for a product. Like I tell everybody, I've learned to sort of hate marketing. I love a great idea. I love a great product. And then I love a great story, creating demand for those two things.
So let's dig into the ways in which, let's dig into the details of how you reorganize around this. What changes have been made internally? I know you made reference to concept teams. Maybe we can talk about that.
So there's been a couple
What do
different
these teams look like? How do you manage this at such a scale when you're talking about literally hundreds of product releases?
Yeah, well, first of all, we don't deal with 100. Actually, what we probably do. I think actually we have 250 collaboration drops in the back half of this year. So we do have
Yeah,
hundreds of drops
there you go.
from this world. Um, um, but I think first of all, having the self-awareness to understand that the business model and your organizational model need to evolve and continually transform is really important. Knowing that you need to let go of some things and invest those resources, because nobody wants to just keep adding on. So to reinvest those resources into organizational focus on growth is really important. And I think that we've done that. I also think that at least our organization has evolved in a way where marketing is no longer a department, but it is spread out throughout many departments within the organizations. That's something I'm really proud of. It's made our organization very matrixy, but I think that we have a marketing mindset in many different aspects of the organization. And when I say that, I mean that it's an idea revenue driving first organization.
Describe that matrixy structure for us.
So we are a portfolio company. So we're not just Foot Locker. We own multiple retail brands. So we are a shared services model, which many people are, which ultimately just makes us very matrix with dotted lines and straight lines. So understanding roles, responsibilities is extremely important. But we also very quickly realized that if we didn't have extremely clear ownership of and focus on different aspects of growth, that it was going to equate to nobody owning. So when we came out with this concepts over colorways idea, we had to put our money where our mouth was, and we formed a team that sits in between product and marketing. It reports into me. It matrixes into our head of product. The person who runs that concept team to give you an idea of how important we felt this role was, is the person who led all product for Foot Locker, our Foot Locker retail brand. And so that team has both product and marketing sitting within it. It works with all of our different partners across our organization and all of our different brand partners to brief in ideas that would be designed into the product. So that could be, we just did a really amazing celebration of the 25th anniversary of Ken Griffey Jr. and his product, and we built that idea into 5 different models. So even though Ken Griffey Jr. has a shoe with Nike, we did re-release that shoe, but we also had an Air Force One, a Max 90, and a couple other different silhouettes that the Griffey tribute was built into the design of the shoe, that made the anniversary pack much easier of a story to tell, because it was rooted in something real. We just had a famous designer named Ron English do a collaboration with Crocs. He's famous and he loves animal print, and so we did a party animals drop concept with him, where we had all these different pairs of Crocs designed with different animal prints that he designed, and that the charms that are on Crocs are called gibbets. It's just extra learning for today. And all the different gibbets were specific to the different animal print that was on the different pairs. So, I mean, those are a couple different examples of very recent that team has worked on and put the ideas, found the partner, and brought to market. And they see it through all the way from the brand partnership, the brief, the ideation, 12 to 15 months out, all the way to the marketing team that sits under this team, working with our different banners to bring it to market and making sure that they have all the assets that they need to tell that story.
Let's talk about ideation, because you mentioned how much of this is so much tied to customer identity, to cultural moments. Where do the ideas come from? I know that you've got structure in place that actually helps generate ideas and help it come from the bottom up. So tell us that structure.
So I think there's a couple things there. So first of all, I think the team has done a really great job making sure that ideas can come from anywhere within the organization. So for example, we just had our spring 22 New Balance concept briefing this week. And that was us bringing a very formal process bringing us ideas to them.
Mhm.
Then they'll come back to us and say, this is what we like, this is what we think we can do. And then we go into the creation process. Those ideas came from our internal teams working throughout all of the different sort of idea pockets of the organization. And then we have an online consumer panel for consumer insights that has about 10,000 different segments of our population, very strong on the sort of sneaker head or sneaker enthusiast population. And then we have the ability to test some of those ideas all the way through the entire journey, but certainly in the idea phase with them. So, it's funny, I joke, but like the cereal Crocs, which isn't coming out for a little bit, but the cereal Crocs idea, there was an internal fight between everybody about what cereals were most relevant to, it's so trivial, but what cereals. And so we honestly went to the consumer panel, and that's how the cereals were chosen for the Crocs partnership. So we'll go and we'll test ideas, we'll use them for understanding what's relevant to them today, and more.
Are there some examples of some misfires or some less successful ideas that you've learned a lot from about this process?
I'm not going to get into which products flopped, which ideas flopped, but there always are. I mean, and of course, I mean, we represent, like I said, we represent choice, and and I am, I think I tell my team all the time, we have to be confident enough to swing and miss. Not everything is going to be a home run. That ultimately the consumer chooses. We only make money when product sells, right? And we represent a lot of different. We represent choice and quantity. So not everything is going to work. Sometimes it doesn't work because the idea ended up to not be as relevant as we thought. Sometimes it doesn't work because the design wasn't as good as we might have hoped. And sometimes sometimes the price value equation isn't there. And when you are, and sometimes when you're utilizing concepts, and whether it's IP or a partner, you're also bringing in more price into the product sometimes. So you have to balance all those things. Not everything works.
Let's bring this now forward into the media and promotion side. When you're dealing with that many products that are trying to trigger in consumers, often pieces of personal identity and identification, cultural moments of such diversity, what does that do to the media plan? Where do you and how do you then make decisions about where you're going to invest in media, and is it very fragmented? Has that changed?
Well, so first of all, I really truly believe that there's nothing more important than the demand creation piece of the equation for a product. So if a product is intended to launch with demand, we better do a really good job building anticipation and then telling a story. Because in our world, demand drops on day 2. So we're gonna launch an idea. It will never have as much demand as it has on day 1. And sure, it will even out for hopefully sustainable demand over the time that we still have product available. But the most important part is that that if a product is meant to launch with demand, it has to be at its peak demand at launch. Then we've created an audience.
What channels are you using what are the channels you're using to make sure that demand is there?
So once we've created that audience, and we have a really robust data lake, and we have a robust social following. So we really have to utilize both of those tools from a targeting perspective, and whether that's building people that we already know, whether that's we're talking people that we already know we have, or that's utilizing a lookalike model. For the most part, we are in a youth culture space, so we're talking mostly paid social from the demand capture side. So that's post launch. But yeah, so there's most of our money is going into in paid Instagram and paid Twitter, some TikTok in there as well.
This is sounding more like entertainment launches. where you're building up demand, like
Oh,
game launches and film launches,
it
as
100% is
opposed
what
to
it
the
is.
usual product launch, is that
Oh,
you're
it's
actually
a
sort of
hun-
building a story up front and building anticipation and all this pre-release material before
it's
they
a,
hit.
it's a, that's 100% what it is. I
Mhm.
mean, and it's funny because it works the same way. I mean, like the best thing that can happen in the sneaker world is that there's a leak that nobody knows how that happened,
Mhm.
right? There's a leak 2 months out of a product or a trailer or whatever, if you're getting over to the entertainment piece, I mean, that's one of the best things to happen. So it is very similar to a movie release where you need the big bang and then you need sustained growth. And the sustained piece for us is where the paid comes in. For the most part, the demand creation piece is less of a paid media buy.
And this would seem then, if we're talking about in general, this larger story of product marketing coming closer, marketing and product development coming closer together, and a greater focus on product as a real driver of the marketing, then this may be true for a lot of other different product types and retail types. We may be looking at a future where, and we probably already are, we see it in a lot of electronics already, where a lot more retail marketing looks more like entertainment marketing.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that what I would say is for us that we are, I mean, we're laser focused on customer growth, and the interconnection between customer growth and product is undeniable.
Mhm.
And I think one of the evolutions that we had to go to was sometimes stop talking about how well product sold, but what did that product relate to from a consumer growth perspective. We only make money two different ways: money from new consumers and money from current and incremental dollars from current consumers. That's it. So we really need to understand the product effect on both of those things. And there are certain products that we sell and certain stories that we tell that are more targeted toward broadening our audience, right, and acquiring new consumers. And there are certain products that we sell and certain stories that we tell that are very catered to a sneaker enthusiast that we already have. So we have to be real. We have to really identify the interconnect, that we really have to understand the relationship between the product that we're marketing and the consumer target from an acquisition and retention perspective. Those two things that customer growth and that product marketing link are directly related. And that is how we're evolving to talk about marketing as an organization. Product growth areas, consumer growth areas. Tell a great story. Tell a great story that represents your brand in the demand creation piece. And then honestly, the other place that we spend our money is in community and purpose. But really it's those three places. It's the demand creation, the demand capture, how both of those things relate to customer growth, and then community and purpose. Those are really our three main focuses.
What would be your main advice to other retailers starting to move down this path, the things that they really need to make sure that they're covering, or they really need to know about moving in this direction, and maybe the major pitfalls to avoid?
I'm a big believer in creating an entity, a focused entity. So that was my want, that I think if you build it, they will come. So I wanted to create this concepts team that had a very specific focus, very processed, that worked with all of our brand partners, that had skin in the game from a financial budget perspective. And so that concept team became an entity that then became a focus of our organization and a focus of our partner organizations. So all of a sudden you found our partners developing similar dedicated teams to address our entity. Our entity had a slogan: concepts over colorways, right? So there is a little bit of internal marketing to create the dedicated focus that you need to move in a new direction. So that is that would be my biggest recommendation. If you believe it is a growth avenue, and again, it might miss, but if you believe if it's a growth avenue, put the formality behind it. Financial formality, people formality, process formality. And if you do that, it's if you build it, they will come. Then it becomes a reality.
Great note to end on. Jed Berger, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you. I mean, listen, I wish I was in Tahoe, but Brooklyn's okay too. It's just not Tahoe.
Okay. And you're clearly, the sneakers behind you, you're prepared for anything.
Well, I'm prepared for anything. I'm prepared for any brand that I have a meeting with. Let's put it that way.
Good
I just
point.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Yeah.
Jed Berger, thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.